Happiness. It's what everyone tells us we should strive for in college, and yet we are never taught how to do it. I was in that exact boat 3 years ago. At the start of COVID-19, I was not happy. I was going through an anabolic dieting phase. I was addicted to video games. I was eating very unhealthily. I thought if I could just look better in the mirror, I would finally be happy. That was not the case. This realization sent me down a happiness rabbit hole, reading books like Stumbling Upon Happiness, Buddhism books, Stoicism books, Thinking Fast and Slow, and so many other things. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything I have learned along my journey of trying to find this thing that we call happiness. I hope that by watching this video, you can be that much better equipped when you come to college to be happy. This is the video I wish I had 3 years ago because it would have saved me so much needless suffering, and now you get to have it in just an hour and a half. So let's start with what happiness is in the first place. It's such an elusive word. We have no idea what it means. We say, I'm happy for you, or I'm happy because this happened, or I'm happy if I get this thing. But in every single one of those circumstances, it means something different. So what is happiness? Happiness is notoriously hard to define because it's different for everyone. The key to happiness is in applying general truths combined with specific knowledge about what makes you happy. It's the second part that makes it hard to define because it's so different for everyone. But to give some sort of a definition, I'm going to define happiness as the mixing of consistent, short, medium, and long-term feelings of pleasure, enjoyment, contentment, and meaning from one's life. Everyone is different. Your background, genetic predisposition, socioeconomic status, personality, values, level of ambition, which is not often talked about, your age, your intellectual craving, your craving for creativity, your sex drive, your life situation, they all profoundly impact your happiness. That's why it's essential that you observe and reflect about what happiness means for you, because it's different from person to person. And another very important point about happiness before we talk about why it's so hard to be happy is that happiness is conditional. Don't get fooled by modern spiritual gurus who tell you you can be happy in any situation. That is bullfuggery. I fell for that trap when I first got into Buddhism. Buddhist monks preach that the key to happiness is in alleviating all desire from one's life, that you can be happy in anything, which makes no sense. We have negative feelings for a reason. We feel negative if we don't have genuinely good relationships in our lives. We feel negative if we don't have financial security. We feel negative if we don't have food and shelter and water to secure us. Of course we do. Why would we not? The negative emotions are meant to push us to change our lives. So the first step you need to make to becoming happier is realizing that unhappiness, negative emotions aren't necessarily bad. They're there for a reason. And if you think you're going to become consistently happy after watching this video, you are completely correct, because my tip is going to be take cocaine and then you will be so happy. No, and don't do that. That's a bad idea. You will not become consistently happy after watching this video. I hope that you will become more happy. How much? Can't promise. But it's important to realize it's not a bad thing to be unhappy or have negative emotions at times. So, with that being said, why is it so hard to be happy in the first place? There are so many things that I could talk about in regards to this, so I'll try and keep it more concise than I would like to. And with this answer, keep in mind, I am particularly talking about modern Western American society. But we're all humans. We're all the same biology. So unless you're an alien creature from Mars, a xenomorph, then a lot of the principles I talk about here will apply. The biggest reason that we're unhappy is because we are creatures who have evolved to live as hunter-gatherers that are living in an industrialized digital world. We evolved to seek out food, shelter, water, to have small tribes of intimate, close connections. But how do we live today? We live in these massive connected networks on the internet. You can talk to so many people on social media. I can go on my phone and I have hundreds of contacts. Are they intimate connections? No. A few of them are. Not every single one, though. And similarly, a lot of these scarce things we have evolved to seek out, like fatty foods, sugary foods, things high in calories, scarce, they're abundant in our modern era. I can go to McDonald's a few minutes from my dorm and engorge myself on massive amounts of chicken patties and soda. I can go to the mall and buy as many clothes as I want. I can get video games and watch porn instead of going out and doing the hard work of finding a meaningful relationship, someone to go through life with. Modern society has made it so that we can get a lot of the hard things we have evolved to seek out with very little time investment and effort. We are short-term gratification monkeys that are living in a world that gives us all of those short-term comforts. And this has a tantalizing effect. We feel a lack of meaning in our lives. We're socialized to think that happiness comes from the wrong things. If you go in the popular culture of American society, it is baffling. It is honestly comical. I honestly laugh sometimes when I go on there and see the type of things that our popular culture thinks is important. Go on and you'll see articles about how stupid Trump is being. Admittingly, he is being very dumb. But you do not have to read 50 articles all saying how dumb he is in order to get the point. You will see people dramatizing celebrities, talking about Bugattis and mansions and startup founders that got rich in 2 days, even though they've probably been working for years and years of their life, but nobody paid attention to them then. You'll see the dumbest of shit in the popular culture. Nothing that has to do with values or meaning. We are mistaking our having needs with our being needs. Our having needs are needs that come from the need to have something. I need to have food. I need to have shelter. I need to have meaningful relationships. That's important. But on the other end of the spectrum, our being needs are also essential. I need to be mature. I need to be intelligent. I need to be wise. I need to be kind. Very important as well. But people are conflating the two. Instead of becoming mature, I'm going to have a porch. Instead of becoming intelligent, I'm going to go to an Ivy League. Instead of becoming wise, I'm going to comment on YouTube videos about my political standpoint. As if that's the same thing. As a result, humans are stagnating in the growth of our character, despite the fact that it is fundamental to us as human beings. We hate stagnation. Just think about how painful it is when someone asks you how your summer was, how your semester was, how your last year was, if they haven't seen you in a while, how your last week was. And the only thing you can think to say is, I didn't really do anything. I just existed in stagnation. Nobody would get excited about that. We like growth. We crave growth, but we never, as a society, grow because people are so dogmatic about their having needs. So instead of growing, we regress. We are amusing ourselves to death. We don't feel any meaning in our lives because we watch TikTok and YouTube shorts instead of growing our character, following our values. It is deeply unsettling. It makes you unhappy when you feel like all of the actions you're doing in your life do not align with your values. Imagine if you value kindness. Imagine if you value hard work, and yet you spend all of your day focused on studying for a test, but not really studying, just procrastinating, going on TikTok, Instagram. Not only are you not working on studying, but you're also not showing your value of kindness by doing things for others. It's completely selfish. We're so selfish as modern human beings. It's honestly incredible. And people wonder why they're so unhappy when they spend most of their days not giving to others. Another major source of our unhappiness is hedonic adaptation. Big source of unhappiness. So important. Hedonic adaptation is the universal human tendency to adapt to positive and negative changes in one's life and go back to a baseline level of happiness. It's For example, let's say you got a raise at work. Yay! I'm so happy for 5 days. And then you go back to the same level of happiness. You go back to your baseline. We evolved to do this because if we didn't, we wouldn't go out and search for food once we found food. It's actually good that we hedonically adapt. Otherwise, we would never do anything. The problem is when you miswant. You think that getting a material good will make you consistently happy. No, it won't. No material possession is ever going to make you consistently happy. So you can desire things, but don't mistake fulfilling your desires in the material realm as fulfilling you in the spiritual realm. It's not going to happen. Nobody has bought a Porsche and suddenly said, that's it. I can sit in my house and never have to do anything ever again. No. It's not going to work. A third major source of our unhappiness is negativity dominance. This is the universal human tendency to prioritize negative information over positive. This is how news gets you to consume it. You ever watch news that was majority positive? No, it doesn't happen. The news knows that you prioritize negative information, so it feeds you dog shit. It talks about some country hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles away, experiencing hardship. You gonna do anything about it? No, you're just gonna feel shitty. It talks about bad things happening in places where you have no power or influence. I'm not saying you shouldn't try and solve these issues. I'm saying you should pick a few that are important to you, work on them, and don't consume distractions, because that's what the news is. It's 99% noise, distraction, no signal, nada. The fourth major bringer of unhappiness is boredom. Big one. Now, I'm not saying boredom is bad. You should have some boredom in your life. If you're never bored, then you're distracting yourself. And this is where the problem comes. We are so bad at being bored in present society, especially my generation, the Gen Z, that anytime we feel it, we immediately distract ourselves with our phones. We go on TikTok, we go on YouTube Shorts, we go on Instagram. We can't be by ourselves in a room for 15 minutes. You ever tried going without your phone for a day? You want to gnaw your eyes out. It's horrible. We can't be bored. And because nobody can be bored, nobody can sit by themselves, we adapt ourselves to constant distraction. What happens when you're constantly distracting yourself? It's really difficult to get into the flow state, which is the state in which you are so absorbed in the present activity that all other worldly matters seem to dissipate and you lose consciousness of the self. It's deeply satisfying to be in the flow state. It's some of the best life experiences you can have are in the flow state. I know because I am in it a lot. I love writing, get into it all the time while writing, reading, conversation. It's an incredibly satisfying feeling. But if you don't have the patience to get past the initial activation energy of a difficult activity, if you don't have the focus to do something for more than 5 minutes, you're not going to get into the flow state. Nobody gets into the flow state watching TikTok or Instagram. They might spend 2 hours going down a rabbit hole, but I guarantee you they won't feel good at the end of those 2 hours. Another big reason it's so hard to be happy is negative psychological energy. This is so important. Psychological energy is the energy we derive from the mental world. Humans exist on both the physical and the mental world. When you are scared that your body is going to die, you're not actually scared of your body dying. You're scared of the idea of your body dying. Think about that for a second. It's your idea of yourself, of your beliefs, of your memories ceasing to be that scares you. It's not your physical body's death that is terrifying. It's your mental death that is scary. The problem is people don't realize how much of an effect their mental world has on their happiness. They imagine a future scenario, make it up. Oh, what if I don't study enough for this test and I do really bad? What if my boss fires me at work? What if I mess up in this public speaking gig? And they look to the past. Wow, what a horrible childhood memory that was. What a dramatic friendship breakup that was. What a terrible dieting experience that was. And then they allow these past and these future mental representations to attack their present energy, to make them feel bad in the moment. So negative psychological energy makes people unhappy. It's not to say it's a bad thing to think about the future or the past, but to do it when you're not aware, that's a landmine for unhappiness. Because humans have adapted to think about the past and the future when we're not actively doing anything. Why do you think you distract yourself so much? So you don't have to think about the unpleasant past and the anxiety-producing future. So you go on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram to distract yourself from negative psychological energy, which ironically makes it worse, because then the negative things that could be happening in the future actually do happen, because you weren't doing the stuff you should have been doing in the moment because you were so busy going on your phone. Big reason for unhappiness. And then finally, but of course not totally, the last reason for unhappiness is the pursuit of happiness for its own sake. Here's the biggest mistake you could take from this video. Try and become happy for happiness's sake, and focus only on that. Happiness is not something you achieve by trying to be happy. It's a byproduct of following your values, of living virtuously, of living a good life. But if you're so focused on if you're happy in the moment, if you're constantly asking yourself the question, am I happy? Am I happy? Am I happy? And guess what? You're going to be less happy than before, because you're constantly going to be judging yourself for not being happy enough or being too happy when you shouldn't be, which is another problem. Don't pursue happiness for its own sake. It's a byproduct. So now that we know why it's so hard to be happy, what are some general principles for becoming happier in college? Keep in mind, these are general principles, and you should not accept them blindly. Everyone has specific notions of what makes them happy, and you need to test to make sure that these work. If there is one ultimate tip for feeling happy in college, it's this: your judgment of events hurt you, not the events themselves. This is a profoundly stoic idea. It is often practiced by the Stoics through the dichotomy of control, which is where you separate events into things you can control and things you don't control, and focus on the things you can control. Because so much unhappiness is caused by letting yourself get attached to things you can't control, to a person that isn't willing to change, to a test grade that has already been given, to something that has happened in the past you can do nothing about. It is the events, the judgment of events that hurt you, not the events themselves. So simply by changing your mindset, focusing more on things you can control rather than things you can't, you will be more happy. What can you control? Your reactions to your thoughts and your actions. That's it. You can't control anything else. You can't control whether she likes you. You can't control how well you do on a test. You can't control how healthy how good health your body is. You can influence these things 100%. You could eat healthier food. You could sleep better, not drink. You can build up your charisma. You can study. But you still can't guarantee an outcome. You can only influence it. So focus on the actions you can take to influence it rather than the outcome itself. Second general principle: joy is the long-term activity of aligning values with action. Think about all the times you've been happy. Almost every single one, I can guarantee it's because you were doing something that aligned with your values. I remember one of the most joyous experiences in my life. I was going to Whiteface, a snowboard retreat with my parents. And I was so anxious at first because I had so much work, schoolwork, YouTube recordings, stuff I wanted to do. Spent the whole morning at the hotel just constantly anxious, running back and forth. But when we got on the mountain, we started skiing, snowboarding. I felt so blissful. Everything was erased. All the worries, everything. And I remember 5 hours in, I sat with my mom, my dad, with a hot cup of hot cocoa and marshmallows. My mom was leaning on my shoulder. The clouds started to dissipate. The sun came out. Some snow was being made by one of the snowmakers, and you could see all the snow glistening from the snowmaker in the sunlight. I was so happy. What value was I practicing? I was practicing the value of being present, of being with my family, of bonding. It was the 8th time we'd gone on that retreat, and it was deeply meaningful. So of course I was happy. I'd aligned values with action. Another key principle is experiences matter more than possessions for happiness. Material things will never make you happy. It is experiences that you can look back upon, talk about with family members or friends or people that you experience them with, and they're an infinite reservoir of happiness. They don't spike your dopamine way too high. They aren't pleasurable in a short-term sense, like eating fast food or having sex unspiritually. They aren't prone to hedonic adaptation. So they're so much better forms of becoming happier, because whereas material things you adapt to, you get more of them, you only need more to see the same happiness level. Experiences can just keep going. Another general principle: humans most often regret what they don't do, not what they did. You are going to be much unhappier at the end of your life from the things that you didn't do than the things that you did. So not going on that hiking trip, not writing that short story, not talking to that girl, not finding a job that you find meaningful. It's going to be so much bigger of a source of unhappiness than the things you did do. Another big principle: attaching to goals within your control. Intrinsically motivated goals. When we attach to things outside of our control, going back to the Stoic dichotomy of control, we put outcomes external to us on our happiness. Think about your goals for a second and figure out if they're internal or external. For me, as a content creator, I used to have the external goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers. Want to know what happened when I got to 1,000? I just raised the bar to 2,000 and then 3,000. Just kept going higher and higher. Now I have the internal goal of creating a better video every week. It's internal. So much more control over that goal because it's entirely up to how much time I put in, how much effort, rather than external outcomes. Another general principle: become more humorous. Funny people generally see the world more positively, because in order to be funny, you have to change the way that you see the world. See it as more humorous. See everything as lighter. Of course, that's going to make you more happy. Big source of unhappiness: taking yourself too seriously. I used to think I was god dang insane 3 years ago. I was so egotistical. I would compete with my brother all the time in high school over the stupidest of shit, like getting better grades and running faster in a race. And taking myself that seriously made me so unhappy because I couldn't take it easy. I was constantly judging external things because they didn't jive with my ego. Another principle: realize the stupidity of miswanting. Miswanting is when you think fulfilling a material desire will make you happy. As we've said, it's not going to. So realize that it's frivolous. Another one, give more. Just giving to someone else, helping them with something they're going through, giving to charity, helping a friend, going to make you more happy. One of the biggest principles I have as a content creator is you give away the information for free and you sell the implementation. 99% of what I give away online, like this Happiness Ultimate Guide, completely free. I hope you're getting a lot of value from it. And I hope that the fact that I'm giving you this much for free is going to make you consider getting my paid offers more, because you realize, holy shit, if he's giving this for free, what's in his paid offer? It also makes me happier too, because giving more is such a positive, enjoyable thing to do. Another one, condition your brain for contentment and satisfaction. Remember when I said humans have evolved to be dissatisfied? Hedonic adaptation. We can actually condition our brains to be different in first world countries where we don't have to be dissatisfied all the time. You do this through meditation, through reframing negative emotions into positive ones. That could be an entire video in itself, but through journaling, meditation, and more, you can condition your brain to be content and satisfied with little. Literally change the nature of your thoughts, feelings, and sensations to be more content and satisfied. Another general principle, developing good character. The act of growing, of expressing your values, of being virtuous is deeply meaningful to human beings. Aristotle actually said in one of his books, Nicomachean Ethics, that the purpose of human beings was to grow their character to the maximum possible extent. How many people do that nowadays? Do you ever have a conversation with your friends or your family or other students about their values? How virtuous they've been in the last few weeks? Maybe the values, but definitely not the virtue. That barely ever happens. What if you did that more? How much of an effect would that have on your happiness? Another one, performing something you're good at. When you perform something you're good at, you get into flow. Flow, as mentioned earlier, is deeply satisfying, incredibly so. So, one of the things that is very happiness producing for me is writing. I've gotten better and better at it over time and made it into a consistent source of joy for me. I almost always enter flow. Recording these videos is another major source of happiness. Feels great to give away value in a video format. I'm deeply in flow right now. Another one, avoiding vice. Simply the act of not doing something bad can be super meaningful. For me, this expresses itself in avoiding fast food, in fasting once a week, in exercising when I don't feel like it. In all of these things, it actually becomes a source of joy to not fall for momentary pleasure. It becomes a source of joy to do long-term gratifying things. It's really hard to get to that point, but man, is it good when you do. It feels amazing because it's consistent. It lasts way longer than the pleasure of eating a burger. Another one, doing excellent work. When I say excellent, I mean excellent. I'm not talking writing an essay for 2 hours and calling it a day. I'm talking something you have applied, skills you have taken a long time to develop, to create something beautiful, to create something freaking excellent. Super happiness boosting. For example, one of my favorite series on this YouTube channel is how video games get you into flow. I spent 50 plus hours creating that series. And yet it's one of the least watched videos on series on my YouTube channel. But I don't care because it's excellent work. I put so much of my soul into that video, so much research, so much of my story is in there. And the act of creating it was meaningful enough to me to do. Same with this video. It's so long, very rare that it will go viral. But I don't care because I have spent so long researching this video. It's a life's time of research, especially in the past 3 years. And it is being condensed. I'm leaving a ton of it out in this hour or so. But I don't care if it gets little views because the few that do watch it fully through are going to have their life changed. And that's enough. Another deeply satisfying, happiness boosting thing is practicing spirituality. This is a little bit higher up on the totem pole for most people because I would not recommend you practice spirituality if you do not have a decent amount of your deficiency needs met. It's hard to practice spirituality meaningfully if you don't have financial security or food or shelter or good relationships. You can still do it. It's just hard. What do I mean by spirituality? I mean practicing the art of the fundamental connectedness of everything. I'm going to have a lot of videos on this in the future, but for now, a little sneak peek, realize you are part of a connected universe. You cannot separate yourself from your relationships or your possessions or your environment because they fundamentally change your cognition. If all of your friends were dead, you would not be the same person because they change how you sense, feel, and think when they are around you. Practicing the art of realizing this and of loving everything, as cliche as that sounds, is a big source of happiness. Another general principle, meditation. This does not work for everyone, particularly those with creative minds. Meditation is a practice that has many forms, but it often takes the form of two different things, which is focusing all of your energy on a single point in your head and stopping all of the normal mental processes that go on. When you do this, it stops you from all of the negative mental tendencies I talked about earlier. Thinking about a future you can't control, thinking about a past, letting that negative psychological energy pervade into you. Meditation can help you calm the mind. Another form of meditation is mindfulness meditation, where you really you bring awareness to the feelings and thoughts that come up. You reflect on them. Why are they occurring? What's causing this? How am I feeling or thinking in the moment? And you come to realize you are not your feelings or thoughts, because they come up regardless of if you want them to or not. It's a profound realization, because it means you don't have to feel bad just because you feel bad. I know that sounds stupid, but it's true. You're living in a mind that is trying to self-sabotage you. So don't let it. You are the awareness behind everything. The last general principle is acting in alignment with specific things that make you happy, which is what we're going to get onto soon after I talk about some guaranteed ways to make yourself miserable. Now that we've talked about all the things that will make you happy, let's quickly go over the reverse. How can you guarantee that you will feel awful? First thing, trying to avoid all suffering. Guaranteed. Can't do it. There will be moments where you will suffer. We have negative emotions for a reason. Doing things you don't think have meaning. Studying for a test that you think is not meaningful. Doing work you think is not meaningful. Hanging out with people you don't think have meaning in your life. Feels miserable. Living out of line with your values. If you're constantly doing actions that don't go with your core values, you'll feel miserable. It sounds so obvious, but so many people do it all the time. Not stepping out of your comfort zone. Remember how humans need to grow to feel meaning? Not going to grow if you never step out of your comfort zone. You're going to feel miserable. Attaching yourself to goals outside of your control. Remember when we talked about the Stoic dichotomy of control? If you constantly attach yourself to external goals, of course you're going to be miserable, because you don't control the world. All you control is your actions and your reactions to your thoughts. That's it. Miserable. Taking things too seriously. This is the person that is incapable of humor, that sees the world as a super serious place. And as a result, they judge everything because they're so egotistical. Being too selfish. Remember when we talked about not giving, about giving being great? If you're constantly thinking about things in terms of what it gives you, it's a guaranteed way to be miserable. This is why so many lawyers and big business owners are miserable. Imagine having to fight for a case as a lawyer that you know is wrong. You're fighting for the wrong side, but you're doing it just for the money. Doing it because you're selfish. Miserable. Seeking pleasure over contentment and satisfaction. Pleasure is never going to consistently make you happy because you adapt to the pleasure. More pleasurable experiences you have, the harder it is to feel content and satisfied overall. Have you ever felt content or satisfied after a big binge eating session? No. Pleasure can't last. Otherwise, it wouldn't be pleasure. Prioritizing your resume virtues over your eulogy virtues. This is an insight from The Road to Character. Resume virtues are things you can put on your resume. What extracurriculars you've done, grades you've gotten. Eulogy virtues are values, character traits. Patient, kind, grateful, generous, honorable, driven, open-minded, curious. If you prioritize your resume virtues all the time, you're going to feel miserable. Consistently doing only things you're bad at. When we do excellent work, when we get into the flow state, it's amazing. When we never get into the flow state, because we're always doing shit we suck at, it's a horrible feeling. Falling for vice. This is the feeling you get after you fall short of something you told yourself you'd do. I told myself I'd study for this morning. I told myself that I would write. I told myself I'd journal, and I didn't. I broke my diet because I ate McDonald's. All these falling for vices, it feels horrible. If you're constantly doing it, you're going to be miserable. Doing shitty work. This one's particularly big for students. If you're constantly doing shitty work because you don't give yourself the time to do it, it doesn't feel good because you know handing it in that you could have done better. There was a future where you planned better and then did something great, but it's not happening. Doesn't feel good. Thinking material goods will ever make you consistently happy. Only practicing your values, growing your character, prioritizing experiences will make you happy, consistently at least. Material goods you hedonically adopt to. Being too attached to the self. Most people think they are their feelings, their thoughts, their goals. You are the awareness behind everything. And if you constantly identify, attach with all the feelings and thoughts that come up, the outcomes of external events, you're going to be miserable because you can't control them. And they're often always negative. This one's specific to college. Putting your worth as a human on your grades. Do you know how many students I know at Cornell that feel horrible if they get 80 on a test? Now, I know some are in situations where their parents are pushing them to do their best and they want to become doctors, lawyers, or engineers. And I'm sorry that some people experience that. But I'm specifically talking to the people that unnecessarily put way too much of their worth on grades. What's more important is you learning to love learning in the first place, not the grade that you get on a test that tests you on your memory for what dates something happened in history. It's way more important. Lying, malice, and anger. There's literally very little case in which any of those are a good idea. Almost every situation where you could lie, you could be malice, you could be angry, would be better dealt with if you were just calm. Almost every single one. And they will also make you happier. Trying to do the impossible. People that want to make a $1 billion company that they grow up, be the next Steve Jobs. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it is going to cause lots of miserableness. That's a word. I know one friend who wants to make a $1 billion company, but in order to do that, he has to do activities that he doesn't enjoy, like learning to market, learning to create content, learning to do sales. but he likes just coding, being in the flow state, doesn't like managing. But in order to get to $1 billion company, he's got to learn those skills. So he's choosing to be more unhappy so that he can do that. And the last thing that will make you miserable, acting out of alignment with the specific things that make you happy. All the things I've told you are general principles, but it is up to you to figure out what specific things make you happy. For me, I know that's writing, reading, being in solitude for some amount of time. Everyone is different because everyone has different genetic predispositions, socioeconomic status, personality, values, level of ambition, age, intellectual craving, craving for creativity, sex drive, and life situation. They all profoundly influence the specific things that will make you happy. So how do you figure out those specific things? Observation and reflection. The popular Socrates quote goes, "Know thyself." And the main idea of that quote is that you need to understand what your values are. Understand how you think, how you feel characteristically, because that lets you figure out what activities to do more of. So this is all a type of thing I call lifestyle design, which is the art of creating and adapting the best possible life for you. And if you want to learn more about it, check out my video, How I Created My Ideal College Life Using Lifestyle Design, up above. There I go in depth into how to journal, how to experiment in your life, how to figure out what your values are, what specific things make you happy. And inside of that video, and also in this one, I am leaving my lifestyle design toolkit in the description, which includes templates for daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly review, video explanations with example filled out reviews, and a list of highest value journaling questions for inspiration. This is the toolkit that I wish I had 3 years ago when coming to college to figure out my values, to figure out my goals, to figure out the specific things that made me happy. So get that for yourself for free in the description. I hope that you got value from this video. This is much longer than I would normally record for, but I want to do more of these types of videos in the future because I've noticed the creators that I resonate most with have much longer videos, because it's only in those long videos that you can really go through a transformation. Character transformation. That's why I love reading books, because they're so much longer than blog posts or tweets. So hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day. As always, eat some peanut butter, and goodbye.